Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Nvidia daily update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Nvidia. Let's go over what has happened to the stock, what we can expect moving forward, and all that good stuff. So if you enjoy, please don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice, and I am not a financial advisor. And of course, if you enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts in the charts, etc., but you want my thoughts in updates, etc., as the market is trading, as the market is open, etc., well, I have a YouTube membership. That link is below for just $3 a month, where I constantly share my thoughts, posts, updates, technical analysis, options flow, etc. for just $3 a month. Of course, mainly includes Tesla, sometimes other stocks as well, or $5 gives you access to the second tier, which also includes Nvidia. But jumping into it, Nvidia closing the day up a nice 3.6%, closing at $106.50 per share, and it's at a pretty pivotal moment over here in the chart. So I'll explain why and what levels to look out for, etc. I do think the market's actually not looking too bad. The market's trying to break out. QQ's arguably already broken out. Tech actually looks strong, or decently strong. SPY's getting pretty close to it as well. But yeah, so what is there to look for on Nvidia, right? What's the game plan here, right? Well, let's take a look at it. So 1 hour time frame. It is technically right now in a pretty nice area of supply, resistance, however you want to call it, right? An area where issues might arise. So the way I'll be looking at Nvidia, and this is what I was talking about. Now I mentioned how I wanted to come down to $100 per share and then essentially make its way back up to test kind of 106 region. And that's exactly what happened, because if you go to the extended hours, you can see it actually did it pre-market, right? Pretty much as the pre-market opened in the very early morning, it went down to pretty much 100.6. So it pretty much did my exact play that I wanted it to do. Came down, tested those levels, and then it of course went nicely to that kind of 106-ish region. So now that it's here, again, this is a pretty important area, and it honestly might even come down to something as simple as, do we gap up or do we gap down tomorrow morning, right? Because technically speaking, it hasn't actually broken past it. It's very close, and it's it's definitely trying to, but technically I wouldn't say it's a convincing breakout just yet, because ideally what a more convincing breakout looks like is getting something actually above it, like unquestionably above it, I guess I should say, because right now it's sort of questionably there. And then you get a retest like this, and then you head higher, right? This is kind of what you ideally want to see. That's like the most cleanest way, I guess, of perceiving it, if you will, is, and the price action, right? But we're not really there just yet. So we're very close, but again, this could actually come down to a gap up or a gap down tomorrow, for instance, right? So the way I'll look at it is this: if it ends up gapping up, and let's say Nvidia gaps up tomorrow, to even, I don't know, maybe 107 potentially, that's good. That'll be good news. That will be positive, and then we can definitely start assuming that this is going to be most likely turning into a support, and then from there we can potentially head higher, right? However, if it gaps down below, right, then we will continue looking at this kind of 106-ish region as resistance until proven otherwise, such as maybe breaking today's high, for instance, right? That's another example we can look for if we get a gap down tomorrow. But the way I'll be looking at it for both scenarios is this: if we get the gap up and it's looking like it's turning into a support, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, then the next level will be obviously sometime probably next week, this massive area of supply, like I've said many times, up here, starting at about 111 roughly to as high as about 113/114, something around that kind of 3-ish, we'll say, dollar range. Very large area of supply. And that will be a problem. That will be a problem for Nvidia to beat. But if Nvidia can pass this supply zone up here, that's going to make the weekly look a lot better. That's going to make the hourly look a lot better. It'll even make the daily look not too shabby. But then the best part about that would be if we get past that supply zone, 111 to 114 roughly, then we can get an actual test of this descending channel trend line, right? Resistance, of course, that depending on when it happens, let's say it happens within the first week of next month, for instance, roughly, right? Closer to 120, right? 118, 120, because, it is descending. So that's naturally going to descend, right? That level of resistance, but closer to 120, we'll say for now. And if that can break, well, then we have a whole different game plan in store for Nvidia moving forward, right? That will most likely trigger some, nice bullish thesis for sure. But we're not there yet. We're not there yet. We still have some nice resistances above us to work with and to really ultimately get past with the stock. Again, first one being this 106, then it's kind of 111 to 114, followed by 120. Those are the main levels to the upside. I still remain overall optimistic. It's just very, 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 very short term, for the next maybe even a few days. We're not there just yet. We're not there just yet, though we're close, right? And let's talk about the downside, speaking of which, right? So if we get a gap down, and let's say Nvidia doesn't show any strong weakness or strength, and in fact, it shows weakness to start the morning off tomorrow, for instance, right? And it just cannot break above today's high, which is currently sitting somewhere around the 106 and change, 106 and a half, we'll say, right? Well, that's potentially a different story, at least short term, right? So what would that look like short term? Well, that could look something like this, right? So we could potentially be setting up a nice looking cup and handle here, and we could potentially set up a nice little handle formation next, right? So if we take the Fibonacci on this and go from down here to all the way up here roughly, you know, we can absolutely still make our way back down to, once again, to like 102, 103. That becomes a real possibility. Worst case, in my opinion, if we actually, you know, for whatever reason, show more pain, back down to closer to $100 per share as early as tomorrow or early next week, right? If we show that weakness, if we essentially start losing kind of 105 and a half roughly, you know, those kind of levels start to give up, you know, that is going to show some weakness, and we get a small little cool off, maybe potentially again form that handle of the cup and handle pattern that looks something like this, and then from there we head higher, right? So that something is, you know, a potential, right? You can't fully discount that, especially if we get a gap down in the morning, and especially let's say like the, I don't know, 15-minute time frame, especially if we lose this sort of, you know, 105 to 105 and a half ish level, then, you know, that will even further solidify the fact that there's probably going to be some weakness to start things off over here. So that's kind of what I'll be looking for moving forward into Nvidia as early as tomorrow, potentially. I mean, I'm not sure how quick it'll happen, but those are the levels to the downside if I see actual weakness. Now, as of right now, the way I look at it still though is, as long as Nvidia is above pretty much $100 per share, I actually still overall lean bullish, even if we get that short-term pain to the downside. Again, as long as this general level holds, I still actually am leaning to the bullish side on Nvidia. I actually still think the stock can go higher, and yeah, we could potentially maybe even start setting up also a bullish head and shoulders pattern with this small neckline being right around this kind of 106-ish region, right? So again, those are just all the perspectives I'm eyeballing right now for the upside or to the downside. And, you know, it can be something as simple as, do we gap up or do we gap down tomorrow, like I said. So that's kind of what I'll be looking at for Nvidia moving forward. Yeah, as early as tomorrow potentially, but maybe even closer to early next week. Yeah, so the weekly is still obviously, you know, so-so, right? Again, that 111 to 114 region sitting right here, pretty important. Definitely want to get it back above that. That's, you know, pretty important, pretty crucial in my opinion. And taking a look at the VIX, for instance, the VIX, you know, obviously pretty important to pay attention to here and there, right? And this is one of those times still. The VIX is starting to lose some pretty crucial levels, which should be good for the markets. Maybe that's why the markets are rocketing so far. But the VIX did lose this sort of, you know, crucial level you can see right here. If I kind of put it like this instead, actually, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna do it like this instead. Actually, hold on, let me remove this and remove this. Let me take this, let me draw like something like this, something like that, right? So it did lose these kind of crucial levels down to about $28 per share roughly. So that's good. Now, what we could potentially see if the market wants to get a small pullback to start things off is the VIX gets a little spike. It pretty much goes back right up into this kind of, in theory, of course, supply region. And then from there, it finally gets an actual true VIX crush. And this would be a small little market pullback. And then the market begins its actual rally. So in other words, let's say for QQQ, if it does happen, nice little pullback for QQQ to like the, you know, mid to low 450s. And then we make our way higher to essentially retest this breakout. Kind of same idea with SPY, right? Let's say SPY comes back down, something like this as well. And then it heads higher, right? Sort of the same ish principle, which for Nvidia would also be something similar, come back down to, let's say, 102 to maybe even closer to $100 again, and then heads higher. So that's kind of the way I'll be looking at it moving forward, right? There is still a little bit of that short-term risk, I guess you can say, but I believe it's short-term risk, and as long as those key levels, like I just mentioned, hold, I actually think the market's setting up pretty nicely here. I think the market's looking like it wants to reverse. Google reported earnings, and it's up, you know, a respectable, it's actually going down now. Did they just say something, or did I miss something? There's something going on? It was up like 4%. I'm not sure why it's selling off here. I mean, they announced a buyback and everything. Why is it, what's going on here with Google? Something clearly got announced. I don't know what's going on. Probably something with the DOJ, honestly. We'll see. Yeah, something definitely just got announced. We'll see how that plays out. But yeah, that's overall how I'll be looking at it moving into tomorrow. So let's watch for that. Let's see how it plays out. And yeah, let me know what you think down below. And I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.